watch this if they've had to miss this session for one reason or other. Maybe they're having a long weekend or something. But we're on to our final session, and there's a few things that we want to cover off today. We want to talk about safe system assessment policy around different jurisdictions in Australia, different accreditation registers or registers of safe system assessors, pre-qualified and the like, and how you could get yourself on one of those if that's something you want to progress. I also want to talk about just some of the processes that you'd go through in doing a safe system assessment. But I've also got quite a bit of time allocated if you would like to discuss any particular challenges you're facing with your safe system assessment assignment that you're doing, anything you've come across that you're confused about, any general questions about safe system assessments. And I also do have a bit of sort of general discussions about road environments, road stereotypes, different areas, and how we would get good alignment with safe system principles. Really, the reason for that, and why I've allocated a bit of time in this last session for that, is because you will have done a safe system assessment on a very, on a particular road environment. It could be a local street, it could be a particular arterial intersection or whatever it is. But we want you to be able to go and use that process on any road environment. It could be a local street, it could be a motorway, it could be a rural freeway, or it could be an urban arterial, or whatever it is, or a bike path for that matter. So we want to just cover off some of the key characteristics of these road environments. So if you're doing that assessment, you can make some recommendations sort of aligned with what we know gives us good reduction in exposure or likelihood or severity, or a combination of those. So anytime, if you think of a question, please chuck it in. I'm happy to go off on tangents to dig into my my archives and find different assessments or the like, or of course, after the course, you can follow up with me and I can send you different documents or the like. So I'll pause here and see if anybody's got any questions straight off the bat about maybe their safe system assessment that they're starting to get their head around. Could be about the content, could be a logistical question as well. I'm happy to answer those. And while you have a think about if there's anything there, I'll bring up some slides. Okay, I'm not seeing any immediate questions coming in, which is fine. You'll maybe think of something as you tick along. We've provided you lots and lots of extra resources in the on your memory stick and in Moodle for you to be able to delve into different areas in more detail yourself. But as I say, always happy to help out and have a chat with you, walk you through different elements, and provide you and share examples of assessments we might have done in different areas, or templates, or research reports that we're aware of, or the like. So the learning continues. But let's talk about this sort of policy guidance around safe system assessments. I mean, I'm using policy in a very generic way here, but we'll delve into it. What we want to do in this session is understand the benefits of a safe system assessment. So you're able to talk to people a bit about why you would go through this extra process. So whether it's your clients or whether it's your boss or the like, or other stakeholders, why you'd go through this process. What is the actual benefit we're likely to get out of this? I want to take you through the process of safe system assessments within an infrastructure project, within an organisation, a government department, and the difference between a safe system assessment and a road safety audit. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to take you through accreditation, pre-qualification systems, different ways that Australian and New Zealand jurisdictions are looking at safe system assessments as an integral part of their investment infrastructure investment processes and business cases and the like. Okay, I want to start with this graph, and it tells quite a story. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it, and it may spring some ideas or questions from you. But what it is it's the central output of an independent evaluation of 35 major safe system assessments. I say major safe systems, I mean, they were major projects that had, proper safe system assessments done. 35 projects in Victoria. They were all in Victoria. This was commissioned by Victorian government, this independent review led by Blair Turner, if those know Blair. And it looked at these 35 safe system assessments. And basically what it did, it was trying to establish what actual value in terms of reduction in fatal and serious injury crashes are we likely to get by going through this process. And so let me walk you through this. What they did, the evaluators here, or the researchers did, was they used a crash prediction model. And so that's basically takes a heap of variables that they can put into it, and uses the best research from around the world to then predict how many crashes an area would have based on, the volumes of speeds, and then a presence of all the different infrastructure and different bits and pieces. And what they did is they forecast out a 20-year. They actually did a few scenarios. So they did a 5-year scenario and a 20-year scenario, or a 50-year scenario, something like that. I can't remember what the longer term one was. I don't think it was 50 years. That's a bit long. But anyway, what they did is they said, all right, let's have a look at these projects. And these projects I mentioned were big projects. We're talking like town bypasses, major, like, $500 million big duplication jobs, huge upgrades to freeways and things like that. So like huge projects. And they said, all right, let's look at that area or where people are going through from A to B. And if this project is not built, not at all built, how many crashes does our crash prediction model predict will happen? And how many fatal serious injury crashes over the next 20 years in these road lengths or areas? And they came out with 344 fatalities and 7,900 or so serious injuries. So that's if no infrastructure upgrades happen in these, huge areas. Then they said, all right, the original designs were produced, and they got a copy of this. And we're talking like your stock standard, like these are your big design houses. You know them, the multinational companies who are producing lots of designs, and they've produced basically the reference design level for maybe a little bit more than that sometimes. And they called this the original design. Okay. Now, the original designs had, I shouldn't say all of them, I think it was like 27 of them or something of the 35 had been subject to a feasibility early stage road safety audit, and changes had been made associated with that. And what they saw from that was that it dropped it down to 286 fatalities predicted and 6,700 serious injuries predicted in these areas when they did the upgrades. Then we see the safe system assessment happen. We see the safe system assessment has happened. It's gone through the process, given information back to the project designers, project managers, project teams, right? And they did is they said, all right, let's have a look at those reports and those recommendations that came out of it. And if we could, if the project teams took on these recommendations, what would we see? And that went down there to 3,800 or 3,900 serious injuries and 167 fatalities. But then that was what the Safe System Assessment had said. Here are all of our recommendations. When they actually said, well, we can't do this one, but we can do this one. We can't do this one. We can't do this one. Oh, we can do this one. Yeah, we can do that one. We can't do this one, but we're going to do this different thing, which we kind of feel does the same thing. And so this is what they actually adopted, which went forward for construction. And that was 227 fatalities and 5,300 serious injuries. Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. What does this say? So this tells me a heap of different things. It tells me, first of all, that the designs that are being produced out of the big design houses are improving road safety. Okay, there's no denying that. There is a reduction. Now, yes, this is aggregated across a lot of projects, so some of them may have been far better than others, but in general, we're seeing that they improve things. That's good. The difference between this and this, for me, that's what we can do if we push. I mean, this is really exciting, the amount of reduction in death and serious injury we can get out of infrastructure projects. The difference between this and this, to me, that's a fascinating little gap. That gap is where the Safe System Assessor is suggesting stuff and the project can't do it for one reason or another, or they feel they can't do it. Now, the factors around this, and the research evaluation report's quite, explains a bit of this, but there were things like political commitments, a general, like, this doesn't meet standards or guidelines style response. Cost sometimes came into it, the extra costs associated with these things, public acceptance or perception of public acceptance. The public won't accept that. That's not how we do things, were other ones. So there's, quite a variety of reasoning behind it. The difference between this, so that I find that interesting, and we're going to, work on that in a different way. The difference between this and this, that is the immediate value of a safe system assessment. Right? Well, I haven't drawn my lines quite right there, but that's immediate. Like that is just going through the process of the safe system assessment, and it's stuff that the project team has accepted, said, yep, we can do that, and gone ahead and done it, right? And got that big saving just for going through that process. Now, I can't give you a cost to the different things and additions. I know some of them were significant extra cost in the project. Some of them were very minor extra cost in the project. Some of them actually saved the project quite a bit of money. I think in balance, it did cost more in the project, but it was interesting to see some of the ones that saved significant money. And usually it was around the cross section that they were needing to build for their town bypasses. Usually, where they their original designs were looking at these sort of 12-meter clear zones and a 12, 15-meter wide median and another 12-meter clear zone, and they were having to just like buy up heaps of land and like cut down just big swathes of native vegetation and buy the offsets for all the trees that they were getting rid of. And, you know, the Safe System assessment came in and sort of said, well, you like to get your best safe system alignment, you're going to do continuous barrier systems anyway. And so your cross section is just like way too big for what you need. And it just brought everything way down. So there were some examples like that where you know, hundreds of millions of dollars were saved in that altered cross section. But as I say, a lot of others had more significant, more substantial costs associated with them. So that's interesting. There you go. Immediate benefit, just the process. The other things I do find fascinating is this. I mean, we've established that the Safe System is aspiring to zero death and serious injury, and that a Safe System assessment should put forward the ideas that will help us get to zero. Yet our highest Safe System alignment with the recommendations out of the Safe System assessment still has this residual death and serious injury in these projects. So like you sort of go, what? That should be zero. Like if you do everything the Safe System says, we should have zero. Well, the evaluators here and the researchers were, it's probably proof that it was quite a realistic, rigorous study, because they put it into their crash prediction model and it just went, no, like you're still going to get a residual of death and serious injury. What you're proposing is not going to eliminate it. And what we found were that there were these things that we don't know how to resolve yet. We just don't know. We don't have the tools and the features. And some of them were like motorcycle crashes on these higher speed roads. We had their extreme driver behavior that wasn't being addressed in the infrastructure being presented. And in the Safe System assessment, the interventions around behavioral change, enforcement, and these sorts of things are good, but it's sort of like, you know, you're addressing a project and there's a holistic statewide or national, you know, context to be playing out in. So to me, it says that, you know, what we're doing with the infrastructure predominantly is playing one important cog in the wheel. And it's a big cog, right? But it says we need to continue to work on all of these other elements of the system, the vehicles, the people, and everything like that, to try to bring this down. And we need to innovate, and we need to push boundaries, and we need to try to invent new ways to address this residual. So innovation is going to, you know, be so important for us to bring that down over time and come up with new ways to do it, new things. So what I'm hoping to see over time is that these original designs, and this is already happening, I should say, they come down closer. They come down off the bat. So the designers, the big design houses get better. They understand. They're getting Safe System assessments fed back at them that say, you know, that you should consider this and this. And so their next design, they go, oh, well, we know we're getting Safe System assessed, so we're going to do this straight off the bat. Great. I want to see this gap close. I want to see this continue to go down as we get better and we innovate and we come up with new ways to do it. And I want to see this gap go down as we get better, better funding, better political commitment, better understanding of some of this stuff. And so we're going to have all of these coming down. I also hope we see this coming down as well, off its own bat, due to a whole lot of other elements of the Safe System being improved vehicle technology, driver behavior, you know, overall management of speed and those sorts of things. So as I said, fascinating. Like, it's amazing how much of a story for me this graph tells. And let's see if we've got any questions or comments there. Yeah, what were the crashes following the safe system assessment, how do we get that to zero? So Daryl's just exactly hitting the nail on the head. You can have a prize for that, Daryl, because it's such a important question. And as I mentioned, they're really around. It's in the road safety Vision Zero planning space, what we call the residual. It's the residual. It's the crashes that we don't know how to treat at the moment. And as I said, what we find are motorcycles are the classic example. It's like we're going to have to ban them, or we're going to have to make them travel at a speed that's like incredibly slow compared to the rest of the traveling public, or provide them their own sort of dedicated facility, because it's just not working within the realms of trying to still provide a transport network that moves people and goods. So that's one. There's some heavy vehicle ones that don't get addressed as well, and it's heavy vehicles also crashing with passenger vehicles as well. And it's due to often the fact that like even the continuous barrier systems that are test level 3 or 4, so maybe you put a wire rope system, or you put a flexible W-beam system down the middle of your road, and you do a wonderful job in eliminating the majority, almost all. But then there's the occasional larger vehicle that goes through that. The barrier is not designed to contain that vehicle. It just doesn't have the strength to do that. And it makes it to the other lane. So there's another example of one. Those extreme driver behavior ones, which is where it's not sort of generally in that realm of normal human error. It's sort of more intentional human error, which is driving the wrong way down the freeway, the high speeds through residential areas, and these sorts of things. Now, don't get me wrong. I feel that we're hoping that other elements of our system will intervene in this. The vehicles will intervene, or something like that. But in their prediction model in the 20 years, they still had some of that happening, and it was sort of that's within that. As I say, it's called the residual, and it's an interesting thing to do, to develop a road safety strategy for a jurisdiction or a nation or even a local government. And what you can do is you can plot out a future scenario where you have essentially the best infrastructure that we know of today, and the vehicles you predict in the future, and then backcast it and run it through crashes that are happening today to see whether they would still exist in that future state. And so this is, if you read the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 7, which is a document that we developed and we're helping develop with Austroads, there's a lot of information around that. But essentially what you're doing there is if you say, we're going to have we're aiming for 0 deaths and serious injuries in 2050 or 2056, which are the dates that Victoria and New South Wales government, for example, have committed to. You say, okay, well, we've built this road environment. We've got these vehicles on the roads, and people, walking around and riding and all of this. In 2056, what do they look like? What's the road environment? And then, as I say, you go back and you look at today's crashes, and you just eliminate. You go, that crash would have been solved by that in the future state. That one would have been solved by that. This one would have been solved by that. This one's the residual. We need to put that into a pile. We've got a motorcyclist. They were traveling 160 kilometers an hour. They came off their bike. Even in the future state, we haven't fixed that. We don't have the vehicle technology. We don't have the infrastructure to fix that. And so you plonk it into what we call the residual pile. And then you do that for, you can do that for a couple of years of fatal crashes and serious injuries and the like. And you can put this, and then what you do is you build this residual, right? And you build information about the residual. And then you build a road safety strategy around two things: ensuring that you build your future state as defined, like the base level that eliminated a whole lot of things. And then you strategize around the residual. What do we need to change? What do we need to invent? What are the problems that we've got that we can't solve with our current knowledge and technology? And then you research that, you innovate around that, you put that challenge out to smart people like yourselves who can innovate and think broadly and go, wow, okay, well, we can adjust this, we can change this. And that's how you build a sort of vision zero strategy. And people just get like, what happens is often that people get fixated on that residual as a reason that zero is impossible. You just go, no, that's just helped us refine exactly what our problem is. Anyway, that's a little bit into vision zero strategizing. Hope you got something out of that. Okay, let's have a little bit of a read here. One thing that concerns me about safe system assessment sometimes is assessing one site in isolation to the rest of the city. If a redistribution of traffic occurs, it will simply shift a problem. It will reduce the safe system assessment score for that particular location, but shifts the exposure somewhere else into new problems, and it could be problems with other road users, could redivert traffic through local streets and the like. That is now that's just an absolute cracker of a question, because it is something that we still grapple with. So prize coming your way as well. Let me answer it in a bit of a way and say that it's still an issue, right? So some safe system assessments, you do cast a bit of a wider net, and you can look at that treatment at that location, and then assess the intersection that your traffic modeling has shown will increase. So you can almost do parallel assessments. And so you can build a bit of a picture and understanding under different scenarios of how that plays out. Now we're getting into quite in-depth, complex sort of safe system assessments, and there's a bit of resource requirements around that. But it's kind of the same as your traffic modeling, really, isn't it? I mean, you know that if you do intersection alterations at this area, you're going to impact on different traffic distribution. And we've got, we can do Sidra network and, different modeling to show how that happens. We can do similar with safe system assessment. So it is a possibility. But there is still a tendency for it to be done at a fairly isolated, this is the project, this is what I'm looking at, these are the changes. Now, in a safe system assessment, yourself as a safe system assessor can acknowledge this. So when you make recommendations, if you're making a recommendation at an intersection, for example, to close that intersection off, okay, you can write into your recommendation, this will reduce the exposure to crashes at this intersection, but I do note that it will redistribute the traffic to other intersections, and that should be looked at. Right? Maybe it's not within your scope to look at it. You can flag that. Now, I'm all up for redistribution of traffic if it puts it to a safer intersection. So if you've got a passively controlled intersection crossing multiple lanes of high-speed traffic, and you've got people turning in and out, and you've got a roundabout down the road, and you can close that off and divert people around to that roundabout, they might have to go through a little bit more residential street to get there. All right, but the bulk of the worst safe system assessment scores are coming out of that intersection due to a whole lot of things, and we've moved it to a low severity intersection, hopefully with low likelihood of crashes. And yes, you've bumped the exposure up a little bit at that intersection, but you've brought everything down. So you can sort of work with that and acknowledge it. And I think a lot of you will be very well placed to be able to do that from just a logical perspective of logic. You go, yeah, okay, that's going to, people still need to get out of there house and they still need to go to work or go to the shops and the like. How are they going to do that? And help the project team ensure that they think about that in their process. So now Wayne's asking, my assignment had planned to ban right turns from a main road, which would have impacted the local community as part of the community consultation. It would not be approved. Right. Okay. Fair question too. Now this one, slightly different answer. Not your problem as a safe system assessor. Right? Now that's a decent problem for the project manager and the the region or the road controlling authority looking after that area and whoever's trying to get this project up and running. But as a safe system assessor, if that's what they're wanting you to look at, that's what you do. Now, often the reason, well, many reasons why people get safe system assessments done, but sometimes one is to help with their consultation with the community, with the politicians, with their team leader, their director, whatever it is, to say, yeah, okay, we want to ban the right turn here at this location. And we know there's going to be community pushback. But look, the safe system assessment is showing how much better it is in alignment with safe system principles. And that may create part of the package there. But again, this one's probably one where you'd go, okay, that's what they're asking me to assess. That's good. I'll have a look at that. I'm going to make some notes in here as well about where people will now have to go and maybe flag that they should have a serious look at that. Maybe should do a safe system assessment on the next intersection down now. But also one that I always want people to be really aware of. It depends how they're planning to ban this right turn, right? If the banning of the right turns with a sign that says no right turn, and you go, you're going to have to drive a kilometre out of your way. Is that going to be utilised all the time? Are you willing to put a 0 for exposure there, or significantly say that the right turn is not going to happen? In theory, if everybody follows the rules, but you've got to be realistic about it and say, no, I actually don't think it's going to happen. So maybe if you're going to do it, you've got to have some physical alterations to make it happen. But yeah, really, I mean, a safe system assessment is a look at the alignment with safe system principles. You don't need to get into the, is their project politically acceptable? Or, you look at it and you go, oh, geez, you good luck chopping that tree down. It's, some super species of tree that's never going to happen, but their plans to chop the tree down. You might say that to them if you know that, and just go, oh, by the way, I don't think you're going to be able to do that. You should check that in your environmental thing. But that's not the safe system assessment's responsibility. That's a bigger project challenge. But excellent question. Let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, so some just agreement from Neil there in terms of the overall safety is what we're looking for. And sometimes you do get a very narrow scope of your safe system assessment. And as I say, sometimes it's just, you just got to assess what you've been given and maybe make a few little notes to others. Often you go, yeah, it's not really going to impact on, in my opinion, the alteration of traffic flow and distribution and the like. So I'm okay with, just playing it with a straight bat as it is. So I hope you found that little explanation about the research there interesting. You can just Google safe system assessment evaluation and that research will come up, or if you really want to use it for another purpose, let me know. I don't think it's in your memory stick or in Schoology, but we can certainly dig it out and provide it to you. So just a few dot points on some of the benefits of safe system assessments. I'm not going to spend long on this. Great way of determining how well a project aligns with safe system principles. And that might sound obvious, but that is something that we have craved as a community and an industry for a long time, because this idea of the safe system has appeared. And then it's sort of like, well, what does that actually mean on the ground? And you know, we got these often people saying these things like, we will only build safe system projects. And you're sort of like, what on earth are they talking about? Like, what is that? What is a safe system project? Like, and the thing, you know, it's a spectrum, and things align better with safe system principles and not so well with safe system principles. And so it was kind of meaningless, and it kind of made the whole thing a bit of a wash. To be able to provide that report card is such a wonderful benefit. Great method for comparing project design options. And road safety audits are not something that you do that with. And in fact, that's clearly stated in the Australian Guide to Road Safety Part 6 and Part 6A. It says a road safety audit is not to be used to compare project options. It's to identify the safety issues in each option or the one that you're presenting. But it's not a comparative tool. But a safe system assessment is, and that's a great use of it if you want to go down that track. And so that's actually one reason why safe system assessments are really quite popular, and people get excited by them at the optioneering phase, at those early stages of infrastructure projects where they've got some ideas and some designs on the table, and they can factor in safe system alignment with their impact on traffic, with the cost, with the, you know, your multi-criteria assessment becomes richer and more, more vibrant, and takes into account safety and safe system alignment. Whereas before it was sort of like, there wasn't anything really quantifiable, and you're just like, yeah, they'll all be built to standards. So that safety is fun, and off you go. Or you have some sort of like just road safety audits done, and you get sort of rough, oh, there was a higher risk thing in that one. And it doesn't really clearly give you those numbers. So information on design changes that will move a project proposal closer to safe system objectives, which is to eliminate death and serious injury. Now, road safety audits do that as well, but I think safe system assessments give you a lever to be a bit more forward, push changes a little bit more. Good method for assisting planners, designers, project managers to move safe system from this theoretical sort of thing that your chief executive and your director signed up to because they couldn't not sign up to it because it's, you know, at a head in the clouds level. Of course, it's a good thing to aim at, you know, no death and serious injury, and you know, all these humans make mistakes. It's all no-brainers to sign up to if you're a politician or a chief executive or the like. But when we're on the ground dealing with a project in the trenches, and it's, well, what do we actually do? How do we make decisions? And that's a great thing. The assessment framework just helps, and it's a sound basis for future planning of road design and infrastructure. Okay, let me take you through the process. I mentioned this already, but this is I think a really important diagram, and you'll see this appear in the Victorian Safe System Assessment guidelines, the South Australian Safe System Assessment guidelines. It's not in the Austroads document because the Austroads document is a bit more about the actual assessment. This is more a process-related thing. But when do you do a safe system assessment? When is it best to do it? Early in the projects. All right, in that concept and ideas and options and early planning phase, right? Because once you're down here into the details, the project's kind of set. The big decisions have been made. The intersection form, they're into details. They're deciding about flare rates of barriers. They're deciding about, you know, little bits and pieces in those details. And that's where actually a road safety audit tends to be a better independent safety injection tool. And we discovered this a little bit from practice. And I mean, I've been involved in a couple of safe system assessments on the detailed design set. wow, that's so, big $200 million duplication job, and they give us the whopping 600 A3 page design set to go through, the cross sections and long sections and the pavement details and drainage, all the full works, and they're basically getting it ready for construction to put out to tender or whatever, and they've been reminded or told that there's a government commitment to the safe system, and so that they need a safe system assessment done, and so they get it done. And what are they expecting? Well, they're expecting us to go, this doesn't meet, your flare rate here doesn't meet standard, or your the sign, you've used hazard board signs when you should have used chevron alignment markers, or that little sort of, the really detailed little bits and pieces. But what the safe system assessment came back with on actually, like the couple of these we've done, is your project is going to decrease alignment with safe system principles, and you should fundamentally change the form of your intersections, especially, and you should put continuous barrier systems, or you've got a on-road cycle lane in a 70 km/h environment, and we should do a shared path, fully separated, these sorts of changes. Now, a lot of you have been involved in these big projects. Do you think any of that happened? No. Do you think that they just threw the report back at us and said, this is not helping us, we don't want this, destroy that, destroy all evidence of that, and do something that's going to help? It's just gone. That project is gone, and the best you can hope for is some tweaks around the edges. But if you get them at this stage and you have those conversations, then you're a chance, and the audit's better. And so what I always say is that safe system assessments are not competing with road safety audits, they're complementing. In fact, those two work beautifully hand in hand if you run them in this sort of order. And that's what a lot of jurisdictions are doing. And in fact, Victoria at the moment says, if you do a safe system assessment at an early stage, you don't need to do the road safety audit at that equivalent stage, because often there's 5 stages of audit, and a feasibility stage road safety audit would be in somewhere here, early stage road safety audit. The Victorian government says, hey, we don't want to add red tape to projects because, geez, we've got a lot of red tape already. And so if you do this one, it's going to cover everything off that's in there. So you're exempt from audit at that stage. And that's really good. And then they also say, though, even when you're down here, this should refer back to the safe system assessment to check. Okay, so you want to check the detailed design, safe system assessment that was done, and make sure that any recommendations are all aligning up. So I think that's a good little diagram and a good thing to remember. Safe system assessments early, then road safety audits when you're into the details. And here's a little table which I probably need to update. It's right for some jurisdictions, and it's probably not right for others anymore. It's a bit out of date, but anyway, I mean, difference between a road safety audit and a safe system assessment, there are lots of differences. There's overlap in them, but they're both really good at identifying the likelihood of crashes we've found. Sometimes auditors are really good at the severity. Sometimes they just completely ignore it. And my classic example is the traffic signals on high-speed roads. And the audit is and I've seen just heaps of audits that basically ignore the severity of incidents, or the audit is 100% around stopping crashes. And that's fine. I'm like, don't get me wrong, that's great. That's important. But there's nothing talking about the severity of crashes. Everything that they're doing is around sight lines to the signals, mast arms, line marking, all of that sort of stuff. Absolutely vital, and it must be done. But nothing about when the red light is run, when mistakes happen. Exposure to crashes, really, the audits aren't doing that in that distinct way that a safe system assessment does. It's sort of packed into likelihood. Recommendations, they both provide recommendations that are going to improve things, and they both consider all road users, which is great. We want to do. The safe system assessment is just all about fatal and serious injury crashes, whereas a road safety audit will tend to often get into a lot of detail about other crashes, minor issues and the like. Then the wider elements of the safe system, the safer vehicles, the people, possible looks at maintenance, and that's that more safety and design stuff. Really, safe system assessments are doing a better job there. Post-crash care, and major recommendations to alter the fundamental design of the project is safe system assessment territory. And road safety audit's told it's not your job to redesign the project. It's your job to just identify some issues and the like. And it's just better served for innovative designs, a safe system assessment. The reason I say that is that, we see a lot of road safety audits where there's something that does not meet design standards, and the auditor's jumping on that. And that's a central piece of the audit. A safe system assessment doesn't care about design standards. It's fundamentals of energy and likelihood and exposure. And it'll sometimes show you, this new innovative thing that's never been done has really high alignment with safe system principles, doesn't meet any design standards or anything like that. But hey, the score is the score. And safe system assessments are just far, far more scalable, versatile, broad, and you can really do these wide-ranging things with them. Post-crash, so questions come in. Post-crash care applies to remote locations, hard to overcome in a value for money approach, doesn't impact on the score. No change to this with alternate road infrastructure changes. Helicopter landing pads in the region, if it's steep terrain, high cost, but can be used for road and other. So yeah, a couple of comments on, I agree with what you're saying there. A couple of comments on that is that your recommendations don't only need to be infrastructure related. You can make broader, wider recommendations around things that may not be within the control of the direct project, but they can feed those to others. They can suggest that. They can talk about. So you could talk about communication systems. You could talk about just lobbying for better emergency service provisions and the like. Now, some of it may be way outside the scope of the project, and they just go, well, thanks, but we can't do anything about that. But maybe sometimes they can if they're looking for a holistic approach. Sometimes there are things, and exactly as was said there, helicopter landing pads, location markers. This is a different one. We were doing some safe system assessing of trail bike, as in motorbike trail bikes, trail riding areas, and sort of discovering that some of the injuries and crashes that were happening out there were they didn't know where they were. They sort of knew where they were, but they didn't. And so some sort of ability to markers and things that they could say that they were near could help out a little bit. Some access points for emergency vehicles. So yeah, there's some things in there. It may just be nuts. Like in your safe system assessment, you're just like, I've got nothing. There's nothing I can add. I don't think anything's relevant, and that's okay. But at least you did a little bit of pondering, scratching your head. Oh, I wonder what happens. Now, it could be for a very urban environment. And safe system assessments on motorways, for example, is classic, where you're analysing a new motorway and you're thinking about, crash happens here. Okay, we're just going to get a bank of traffic. How are the emergency services going to get to the injured parties? Well, they're going to come from another direction. Have we got a break in the concrete barrier? Have we got the, thing that you open up and, can we do the contraflow and can we get to them and where would they get off and those sorts of things. So I suppose the real key to this is that in those qualitative questions in a full safe system assessment, they are there to broaden and open the thinking away from just the pouring of the concrete and the putting in of the barrier and the grade of the asphalt and the line marking, trying to broaden our thinking to a holistic system. But that being said, there is huge value still to just looking at the infrastructure through the safe system lens. And even if you don't delve into the other elements of the safe system. I think the question's coming in. Doing well here. All right, let me just take you through the generic sort of process. How does a safe system happen? So the first thing is that the client, and I say the client, I mean that they could be a road authority representative, they could be a design consultant, they could be, whoever it is. For some reason, they've said, right, a safe system assessment should happen. Now, what type of safe system assessment do we want? A full safe system assessment, or do we want a rapid one? It's called rapid in Victoria and South Australia. It's called light, LITE, light in Queensland. And others don't really define it. But I'll explain shortly the difference between the two. But one of them does that delve, the full does that delve into the other elements of the safe system, wider things. The rapid is really just the matrix, the infrastructure, the recommendations around infrastructure related changes and all. But anyway, somebody goes, yep, okay, we're going to do a safe system assessment and we're going to do a full one. We're going to do a light one. We're going to do a rapid. And they also then engage somebody to help them, somebody to do it. Now, it could be, they engage a separate consultancy. It could be they get a safe system assessor within, from their Melbourne office or their Townsville office or whatever it is, and the like. But you do want that degree of independence as well. Now, it's not as strict as road safety auditing in any of the guidelines so far. It's sort of saying that, yes, the lead of the safe system assessment team has to be independent. They can't be the designer or the project manager, but but there's a bit more flexibility in that. But they do say that you can get the designer involved and they can have discussions and they can be part of scoring or putting their input into scoring and the like. So there's a bit more collaboration embedded in this system if you want it there to be. Often though, we're finding it's just treated like a road safety audit where they just go, there you go, do a safe system assessment on that, independent, and give us the scores back and your recommendations. And that's fine too. As I talked about last module, you do want to do some workshops or discussions with them about the context of their project and why, and what are their objectives and all of that. But yeah, they can kind of leave you to it. And that's sort of done in those commencement meetings and understanding the scope, which is where you really have to collaborate and understand and work with them to get a bit more intel and information. Sometimes it's just reports that they give you. Sometimes the context of it because you've been involved in different aspects maybe, or heard about it and the like. Then you inspect the site, and this is still part, an integral part of at least the full safe system assessment. Get out there. Now you're looking at how it ties in with the existing infrastructure, how it's used at the moment, what are the road users there, what's going on, all of that good stuff that you can't pick up from Street View. Then you do the safe system assessment matrix, and you do those qualitative questions. You fill those out. You identify your treatments that improve alignment with safe system principles, your recommendations. You report it using that fairly consistent report format, which we've given you a template for, which you're using for the assignment, but we've also given you the blank templates, but they're available on the Victorian Government website. You can just download the template, and they even say, they very much encourage you, use this, put your own brand on it, just use the same headings and the same structure. So we've got consistency. I think that's a great thing to do. So make sure you're using that, you're following that. Then it's, handed over to the client. And so, there's a report. It shows you how well it aligns with safe system principles, well, your options. It's got lots of recommendations on things that you could alter. It's got a gap for you to fill out, whether you're going to make changes or not. And so they should respond. Now, they don't need to respond to you. It's up to them. I mean, the advice report has been given back to you. It's advice. Here you go. The safe system assessments hold no regulatory power. They aren't there responsible to check whether the client has implemented or is taking this on or not. No, there you go. There it is. Off you go. Do with it what you want. Now, you'd really hope that clients are taking it on, considering what they can be doing, and that they're then altering their design and incorporating any changes into their design. Now, really, if there's never any intention to make alterations at all, I kind of say don't bother spending the money going through the process and wasting everybody's time and resources. There may be occasions where they're just looking to get scores. And so that may be valued, but really you do want that openness to actually implement changes. So if you can't get to the site due to COVID restrictions, and this is sort of the world we live in, isn't it? What sort of insights can I offer or can be gained? You will do a job of improving alignment with safe system principles, coming up with good recommendations and reviewing the design and things without going to the site. Okay. And there is provision in a rapid or a light safe system assessment to do it from the desktop and not go to site, to get a quick sort of report card on alignment with safe system principles. So, it can be done. It's not as good, all right, but it can be done. And I would say you use Street View. You try and get the as much data as you can in terms of traffic volumes, pedestrian counts if they've got them, number of cyclists and the like. Use Street View and use, the historic Street View, go back in time, see, different bits and pieces from there. Ideally, talk to some locals, some people who know the area well, if it's not an area you go to. So you're sort of gathering a picture through as best you can through other means. And then that's what you do. That's what you get. And kind of the same with road safety auditing, actually. You want to get to the site, but sometimes with COVID restrictions or the like, you're told you can't. Any other questions about this process? Those of you who have been around road safety auditing for a long time or even a short amount of time, you might go, this process looks a lot like the road safety audit process within infrastructure projects. And you'd be right, because it tries to mirror that, because it's a process we're fairly comfortable with, and we know, we understand, and that's good. How are we going on time here? Oh, it's just hit 11 o'clock. I might just give you a couple of minutes to have a stretch, fill your coffee up, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the registers of safe system assessors and the like that you could you'll be eligible to get onto, and you can have a think about any questions you've got. But let's have a 2-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll jump back into it. Okay, let's get back into it. And I'm going to jump through a couple of questions that have come in, and very good questions at that. Do you ever do a safe system assessment after design options have been recommended and adopted to see how scores are reduced? Yes, yes, you do. And that is a wonderful question. Probably something I should have mentioned in this diagram. And this, where's my little pen gone? Here we go. So what you may be asked to do is go from here. So the client said, yep, hey, we're going to do this, alter the designs, hand it back. Or even they might say, yeah, we're going to do this, and this. Can you give us an indication how much benefit we'll get from that? And so what you do is you go from there and you jump back into this stage, you do another matrix, and you produce new scores. And what I've found over time is that this actually is a wonderful, just amazing part of a business case or something that shows your commitment to achieving safe system principles. Because what you do is you can say, we had a score of 250 for the existing conditions. Our original design had brought it down to 220. And we had the safe system assessment done, and we adopted some changes and recommendations, and it dropped it down to 145. It's like a wonderful story to show you've pushed hard, you've done more, and you've really gone hard at this. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. The key thing, there are a couple of key things to know about this. One is that you must use the same safe system assessment team to do that. Because there is that degree of subjectivity to it, that if you get a safe system assessment team to do your existing conditions and then your first design, and then you go off and you alter it, and then you give it off to another safe system assessment team, they might be wildly different scorers. Now, as I said, we're trying to build tools and ways to calibrate this and keep everybody within check. But at the moment, the relative change is the important thing. So existing conditions, design, and then, the adopted design should be done by the same team. So it's the same scoring sort of calibration. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, do it. It's a great one. Now, another question is coming. How long will it normally take to do a full safe system assessment for an intersection, for example? Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, early, there is a bit of, what depth, like I can ask a question back, what depth of a safe system assessment are you going to be doing? But I won't, but it is essentially about the same as a road safety audit, really. Maybe it's about the same as a road safety, maybe a tiny bit longer, but generally once you've got your template set up and everything like that, it's kind of about the same as a road safety audit. So like an intersection with one design option at a sort of conceptual level, maybe like at most a functional design. I'd be talking 2 or 3 days work, maybe 2 days, 2 days sort of actual hard work and a bit of site, sniffing around the site and the like. But usually like any sort of thing, you put 2 weeks on it just because you've got to schedule it in with other stuff, and you've got to find the time to get to the site. You've got to get somebody else to review, do a peer review of your report, or your team member, like, you 2 of you, one of you writes it up, the other one then checks it and the like. So that's generally, like, we're finding now, somewhat equivalent to a road safety audit in terms of time and cost and those sorts of things. I hope that sort of helps out a little bit there. Next question we've got here is, when recommending treatments, being a visual person, is it okay to prepare sketches showing the recommended treatments? Absolutely. Now I absolutely love that. And when I do road safety auditing, I'm always snipping parts of their design and pasting it into a report and doing the Laros and drawing, bits and pieces on it, because I love people to pick up the report and easily just look at a picture, understand exactly what the problem is, and then, the recommendation. I tend to not get into too much designing up their recommendations for them in road safety audits, but absolutely, a safe system assessment, more freedom to do kind of what you want. Draw them up, sketches, show them different things. Remember, it's there to help them. And if you can explain it and they can see it and they can understand it, wonderful, bring it on. Not a requirement though, I should say, right? You can just write your recommendations. Okay, let's keep going. So I was showing you this one. So the Vic Roads website, I mean, at some point they're going to change it to a Department of Transport website, but anyway, it's currently still the Vic Roads website. And there's an area called Safe System Engineering. And if you find that page, the Safe System Engineering page, they've got a lot about safe system assessments, and they've got your guidelines, your templates, the Austroads framework. So lots of good, resources. And a lot of jurisdictions haven't got stuff yet, so they just say, oh yeah, we'll just use Victorian ones or whatever, and that's fine, I reckon. Then a little bit further down that page, they've got the Vic Roads Register of Recommended Safe System Assessors. Now, they've used some specific language there. They don't want to say that you're accredited as such. They're just saying these are ones we recommend have done the right processes and things, but it is a list and it's there. And there's information there on how that they're, to get on the list and how they're going to grow the list. They want proof that you've done this course, or that you have the established knowledge. So it's, you'd have to do some work to prove that, but the easiest way is to provide the certificate from this course. Then you have to actually submit a safe system assessment that you've done. Now, it's going to be bigger than the mock one that you've done here. Now, you could take that one and build on it and do some more, but they really kind of want to see a real one where you've had some chats with the client, you've gathered information, you've scored, you've done this and the like. Now, you should be able to find opportunity to do that within your organization by just taking, a project that's happening and saying, hey, we want to do a safe system assessment on this. You can talk to the client, you can say, hey, we want to do this, can we do it? Can I lead it, be part of it? We'll work with you. And maybe you're doing it first one for free because you just want to get on the register. Maybe if you're in a local government or you're within Department of Transport or the road authority, maybe you could pick an internal project that you're not involved in and say, hey, I want a safe system assess this, and you can do it that way. There should be plenty of opportunity for you to do it. And then you go through the process, you inspect the site, you should have a workshop in there, you write it up in accordance with their established templates, and then you submit it and they review it. And they're pretty good at this, actually. I thought it was going to be the toothless tiger of look at it and just approve everything. But they have knocked them back. I mean, they're nice about it. They give you feedback. They say these areas need work, and then you go off and you can rework it and resubmit it after you've done bits and pieces. And then they put you onto the register. And the register basically at the moment is just a PDF that they update. They've got a frequently asked questions document, but I'll show you just a snip of the register, for example, and there you go. You've got the name of the people, the organization, email address, phone number, and the list is building, and it's wonderful. We're getting lots more people there, but it's still there's still it's a fairly new process, and there's not a huge number of people, but that's just a little snip of it. There's quite a few more than that. South Australia has also established their register, but theirs is a list of pre-qualified safe system assessments, assessors they call. Now theirs is a little bit different. They are not going to do a competency check on a safe system assessment that you submit. They accept the certificate from this course and they say, Safe System Solutions will have done competency checks on you, which we do, obviously, the quizzes and your marking of the assignment you submit. So all you need to do is provide the certificate to the email address, and then they will periodically update their register of safe system assessors with people. And here's, the little snip at the top of those ones with a few different people. So that one you can then call yourself a pre-qualified safe system assessor by the government of South Australia. You can call yourself, you can say you're on the register of safe system assessors by the Victorian government. And they're really, at the moment, the only two jurisdictions to publish a list. Other jurisdictions like New Zealand or Queensland or New South Wales, really it's sort of a, people are just using a certificate from a course like this to say that, or just proof that they know and understand and use the safe system assessment framework or the like. But I mean, a certificate from something is always a better way to do it. So interesting that registration in Victoria requires a safe system assessment workshop. Yeah, so the Victorians want you to have gone through that process of engaging with a client and a project team and having those discussions and gathering that information and talking through that. A full safe system assessment, a comprehensive one, is really going to have a bit of that interaction going. So yeah, that is something that they look for. Now, in terms of, I mentioned some other jurisdictions there, some interesting things happening around different places. The Queensland government, so the TMR, they have in their road safety organisational policy said that they will undertake safe system assessments on all their projects, all their infrastructure projects. They didn't even clarify it by dollar value. They just said all infrastructure projects, so everything has a safe system assessment done on it. Now, I think that they've sort of altered that in some back-end business processes and exactly which, how it is. But there's just going to be quite a bit of that going on in Queensland. And with all the TMR projects, and I dare say a lot of councils will be following thereafter. The Victorian government has committed to it. I'll show you their policy. And New Zealand's got it in business cases. New South Wales, it's appearing in contract specifications as requirements for the planning phases and those sorts of things for larger projects. South Australians are sort of getting into it in an ad hoc manner. So it's really becoming part of the entrenched processes within infrastructure, from road controlling authorities. So question there's come in for Queensland is even in the detailed design phase. No, I think it's that for each project at some point it has to have been subject to a safe system assessment in the life cycle of that project. So if it has been done early on, they're not requiring it a detailed design phase. And there's some sort of ways. There is a point in the business approval process in TMR where they're saying safe system assessment has to be done, and it's not a detailed design end. It's more in the planning phase. So the Victorian government, for example, here is saying, here's their sort of policy in a diagram, I suppose. Under $2 million, they're saying rapid safe system assessment, where it's been determined that a formal safe system assessment is required, and there's a bit of freedom for the project team, the region, or the like to make that call as to whether they want to do this formal safe system assessment. they're saying, though, that if they don't do that, if you don't do a safe system assessment, you should have some mechanism to prove you've done the best job you can in alignment with safe system principles. And often it's just easier to do a safe system assessment, but maybe like my classic example on this is, maybe they're doing shoulder sealing or something. $1.8 million of shoulder sealing. Are you going to get value engaging an independent safe system assessor? Like, yeah, I mean, you kind of like, you can do your own bit of work to prove that. I just really would hate to see safe system assessments becoming this red tape that people just like, we're going to get another safe system assessment done. We know it's not going to add value, but it's just ticking a box. And like, we don't want that. We make some calls. Like, okay. But between $2 and $5 million, they're saying a full safe system assessment for anything complex or high risk projects or anything innovative or new, but that rapid safe system assessment could be done on lower risk projects or repeat safe system assessments. And then above $5 million, there's no choice. Full safe system assessments, all projects. Using the proper process, unless you're doing a repeat safe system assessment. Where I say repeat safe system assessment, it's that question that we got before about that feedback loop. So or a completely new safe system assessment, one's already been done and you're doing a refreshed one for some reason or another. And remember, you guys use the same team, so it's kind of like you've done that anyway. I think there's a few little bits of points underneath that. Don't worry too much about that. I will explain the difference between that full and that rapid safe system assessment shortly. I'm just seeing some questions pop up. So in Department, the TMR, Queensland, Department of Transport and Roads, it is a requirement to submit a safe system assessment report to seek funding from the SRS/BS program. So there'd be something black spot, safer road, something programs or black spot programs. So that's really interesting to know. So there you go. It's embedded in part of that system. What I want to see is that it's done on the non-safety programs. To me, the safety programs try to and tend to do a pretty good job in getting safety, safer roads sooner program. Good, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. The safety programs are all about safety. What I want to see is that it's an integral part of a public transport project, active transport project, congestion easing project, traffic ops project, major freight upgrade project. These ones where, yes, we've got other objectives. Safety we'll tick that safety box, sure. But you can really get in there and work with them to elevate and pick these things up. But good to have it starting out in the safety program, that's fine. The main difference between a rapid and a full safe system assessment, and that's what I'm going to spend this slide talking about. So great lead-in question. So here we go. A full safe system assessment in the green is you have a commencement meeting of some description. It can be phone call or Teams meeting or whatever. You do background and context and collect that information. You have a workshop. Now, I sort of put optional there. The reason I put optional is sometimes it's repeat client or these sorts of things, and the project's well established and understanding of it, and so that's why it's there. You would have seen that the Victorian government is requiring that in at least the first one you're doing. You need to get out to the site. You need to look at the existing conditions and all the options. You look at all those other elements, those other pillars of the safe system. You recommend design changes. You do the full reporting, and then the client decides what they accept and they don't, and they amend the design if possible. The rapid one has a few things that have sort of dropped out there. Maybe not a commencement meeting, made. The workshop's probably not going to happen in its full context. Site visit could be one that could go. We often still do a site visit on a rapid because I think you gain wonderful information. You don't do the other elements of the SAFE system and do that analysis of wider thinking, and you do a rapid report, which is a little bit shorter. But I would say it's kind of still 75% of the work or something like that. It's not like you go down to like 10% of the work or something like that. There's still a fair bit to do in a rapid SAFE system assessment. Yes, there's a bit of discussion in there about the Queensland processes, which is good to see. So that's the difference between rapid and a full. Now, as I say, some jurisdictions talk about light, not rapid, and some jurisdictions don't make this differentiation. So just be aware there's a little bit of, it's a newish process. So, we're getting more and more refinement in it. So I'll pause there and see if anybody's got any questions or comments around that process of SAFE system assessment. And then we'll spend just a very short amount of time looking at some different road environments. And then we're basically done with this course, and it's only you to finish your last quizzes and assignments and the like and collect your certificate. And so any questions or comments? Pretty much done everything I want to explain about processes and systems. Anybody interested in other jurisdictions that haven't been mentioned so far? I'm happy to talk to that. All right. I'll give a little bit more time at the end if you do think of something. But as I mentioned earlier, I want to very briefly touch on like the way we could transform different road environments, road stereotypes to the highest alignment with SAFE system principles we've got. And obviously, we're not going to be able to give you details on context and wider strategic decision-making and those sort of things, but just some key principles. What's good, what's not so good. And I'm going to go through these environments and we're just going to look at each one. So you've got a little insight into that road environment. Wow, Wayne out there on site today witnessing a runoff road incident. So there you go, seeing things as they happen live. It's actually interesting. In my career, auditing and SAFE system assessing, I have seen a few incidents. And you think, bloody hell, like, what are the odds of that? And I hope I haven't contributed to it. Me and the team in high vis, that people were looking at us or something, and I don't think they were because we were quite far away from it in the few. But yeah, interesting. What was the severity? So minor. Looks like they're a bit of fire damage and the like. So that's good to hear. But it's an indication those sort of things are possible. Right. Let's do a little bit of interactivity here. You can pop some ideas in. Let's look at this sort of residential street environment, and let's do our usual little activity here. Write in infrastructure changes. Infrastructure changes, we'll just narrow this down to, but improve alignment with SAFE system principles. And how are you doing that? How are you getting that? Exposure, likelihood, or severity. I'm going to give some prizes out because it's our last little thing we're going to do. So I'm just going to write a couple down. If anybody matches mine, they can have a prize. Or the first person to match mine. Not to say they're the biggest ones, but I'm going to pop a few down here. What we've got is a 50 km/h residential street. Access is onto an arterial road. And yeah, the rest I think you can see there. Parked cars and people crossing. Exposure, likelihood, and severity. Remember to put those in there. Okay, let's see what do we got here? So remember to write exposure likelihood and severity. I'm seeing lots of ideas without that coming in. So indented parking, I would say that's an interesting one. I mean, you're going to reduce likelihood because you open up sight lines and those sorts of things. Depending on how it's done, if your road gets wider associated with that, you may increase likelihood and severity as well, associated with higher speeds of vehicles. So you'd really want to complement it with other things as well. Wombat crossings, so raising, slowing down, making it one way could be an interesting way to go. Shared zone speed reduction, so now, yeah, these are good. Lighting as an option as well. Speed reduction on severity, prohibit heavy vehicles exposure. So those are good ones. Lots of good ones. They're not quite exactly what I like, the one that I was trying to see match. I think a number of you are alluding to it in your different ways. I had sort of local area traffic management to get vehicles down. And also, okay, there, it came in just as I was saying it. So, mullet, got an initial for you, so that's enough. I'll find out exactly there. And reduction in likelihood and severity. But also I was popping in there. First thing to look at is, do we need this access? Can we close off that road? And of course, you don't know the context of this, and we don't know anything about all of that, but that's a great thing for a safe system assessor to ask. Can we sort of block these things off, stop them being a problem? But we're going to need to have vehicles going slower through there. We talked about this in the movement place context. Slower vehicles through these areas, ideally using some physical devices, trying to stop them getting through at all, is another great way. Shopping strips and the like. I mean, this one's an interesting one. I'll give a prize if somebody can tell me where this is, or the first one to tell me where it is. And I'll talk through this one. We won't do the same exercise because there's a lot of similarities. It's obviously a heavily pedestrianised area. It's fairly much a place for people. And, I think that you alter your infrastructure to either reduce car volumes through, and I'm going to give it to, well, Elmo there's come in at the same. Benaya can have that one just because I just gave a prize out there. So. Bondi Junction it is. There you go. You can even read a little sign that says Bondi Junction. It's, entry into the Westfield there. And interesting, like when I was looking at this, and this is quite a little bit of a while back, 50 kilometres an hour. What the hell? What's going on? And then, it got dropped to 40 in the pedestrian program or the like. And so our safe system assessment was, close it off to cars, pedestrianise the whole area. Problems with buses exiting there, entering. But okay, buses can go through there very slow, and you can have, ways that only buses could go in. But local area traffic management around the whole area, speeds way down, shared zones. Raising the whole surface areas and those sorts of things. You want the speeds down through here incredibly low. I mean, it's a pedestrian area. And you don't want to be putting fences up and like if you were to say, well, block off this, make one crossing point down here or something, you've eroded the place value of it, the amount of pedestrians. You may even trap pedestrians on the road who are, crossing, and they're going to sort of go where they want. So really, speed way, way, way down. Unfortunately, that didn't, happen. And I think there's been 2 pedestrian fatalities in that general vicinity over the last sort of 7 years or so, which has been very, very sad to see when we knew that it's a high risk area, and other priorities were put forward. Mixed-use arterials, these are hard. These are really hard to deal with. And mixed-use arterials is a term. It's kind of that road where you've got everything as priority. It's that vibrant streets environment. Another one here in Sydney, and but where we have high place value, high movement function, it's a traffic priority route, it's bus route, it's bike route, the lot. I'll put this one back to you. Any ideas on ways we could get better alignment with safe system principles in these sorts of environments? It is Oxford Street. Well done, Wayne. Any other ideas? Wayne could have a prize. I didn't ask the question, but he jumped in early, and it's Friday, so good job. So what are your ideas? Same thing. Give us your ideas and exposure, likelihood, and severity, and something like this. It's going to have high-ish traffic volumes. It's going to have public transport. It's got pedestrians crossing and mingling, and it's got mid-block signals. But what sort of stuff are you thinking? Now, I think it's 60 kilometres an hour through here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne. You probably know it much better than I do. It's 60 or 50, but I think it might be 60. Yeah, okay, so we're seeing here a few ideas. Median islands, likelihood. So Wayne used to work in the area. Pedestrian overpass. Pedestrian overpasses potentially, although you start to, if it's got a lot of pedestrians, a lot of interaction, you start to lose a bit of that place value. So it tends to not to be the go-to. And you may use it as a likelihood factor if you don't think everybody's going to use it. If you can get everybody to use it, you put it as an exposure factor. So road humps and signals, I think, is a really good one there that's come in as well. Reducing the likelihood and severity and lowering the speed limit. I mean, I think we're very much in that frame of mind around these areas where you can start to encourage and move pedestrians to crossing points and raise. So we've got also in there raised platforms at select junctions and the like. But yeah, we are kind of looking in the sense now of raising these crossing points to a degree. And it's not like an urban speed hump. You might be more shallow with your angles on that, and just blanketing speeds down a little bit, potentially reducing the number of through lanes. But raising these sort of crossing points does a couple of things. It first of all reduces the speed at the conflict points. It elevates the pedestrian into better view. It also sort of slows down that hard, fast run through this area. I mean, this is dead straight, and like if you've got green lights, and people can put the foot down, but if they've got these bits to navigate, they won't do that. Now, you might think, buses and vehicles and the like. You can be a bit creative with your design. You could have separated bits here, and so the bus gets a free run without the elevated platform, and you can have that. You could raise the intersection. You can, you can be a bit different with that, and get some good changes. Redistributing traffic, absolutely. Altering the exposure is a very good one. Some good information about pedestrian demand here. The other thing that I like to do in these locations is, yes, look at those speed limits. And one thing, New South Wales government starting to become more and more excited about, and a lot of jurisdictions are variable speed limits, trying to alter the speed limits using electronic signs at different times of day when there's more risk. I think that's a good likelihood reducing factor, sometimes severity reducing factor. I'm a really big fan of dwell on red, and I think some of you might know dwell on red, but or rest on red, it's sometimes called. But it's basically in areas where works best in areas where there's sort of drinking establishments and the like, and it's, well, my favorite place to do a rest on red is in a country town that has a major bypass, and you're in the main street, and you've got pubs on the corners and like 24-hour KFCs on the other corners or something like that. You know, it's just going to be like Friday night, Saturday night, lots of intoxicated people wandering around and all this sort of stuff happening. And it's not providing any, you know, freight function or movement function. And so what you do is you reconfigure your traffic signals to rest or dwell on red. So their default is always to just sit on red on all aspects, on all approaches. Or if you've got it mid-block like this, you just sit your traffic signals on red, maybe between, you know, 9 at night on a Friday till, or maybe 11 at night on a Friday till 5 a.m. and then the same on Saturday or something like that. Right? So the only way it changes is when a vehicle approaches that triggers the loops or the radars or whatever you're using, and it'll drop it to green and let them through, and then it goes back to red. And the whole point is that the risk in that area is intoxicated pedestrians who are going to make mistakes and going to walk onto the road or do stupid things or run across or chase people, whatever. You know, it's chaos. All right. The real traditional approach to addressing these risks is, well, they shouldn't do that. Like, no, it's their fault. They're getting drunk and doing these stupid things. Right? We're not condoning that activity, but to say that and expect everything's going to be fine, or just to go, it's their fault, that's just not acceptable under our safe system. We need to look at what we can alter, and pumping traffic through at 2 a.m. is not our priority. Okay, so we can slow every vehicle down there and just make it damn annoying to go down this area and slowing them down all the time. And so hopefully they take alternate routes. And as I say, this works really well in those country towns where there's the alternate, you know, bypass or something of town. So nobody's going through there. And if they are, why are they? Like, yeah, so I like those sort of alteration thinking, reducing the likelihood there. Yes, you're still going to have potential severity issues. I'd love to see it with raised intersections as well. And it works really well. It's annoying now, says Wayne, and he wants the light rail through there. So those are, you know, wider options. So that's good. You know, a few little ideas and thoughts for you, but certainly we do need to slow vehicles through here when you get those pedestrianised areas. These are going to be extremely hard, these roads. So low volume rural roads, and you know, maybe lower volume than this as well. This is quite a high standard of road, but how do we deal with this massive expansive network that is high speed, low volume, low infrastructure? And you know, the best alignment with safe system principles would be to do continuous barrier systems, full, you know, a barrier system down the middle, but we're not going to be able to afford that on the, you know, hundreds of thousands of kilometers of road out there like this. So how do we deal with that? Well, kind of the answer tends to be that we need to do everything we can to reduce the likelihood of crashes and get it as good as we can. So audio tactile center line, edge line, maybe removing some isolated hazards that are close to the road, good delineation and the like. But in the end, we're going to have to move to try to manage speeds in the interim until the vehicles are really sort of taking over, that they can adjust their speed if there's another vehicle in the area or the like. The public is not on board this at this stage, and it need to be thought through carefully. But there's fundamentally inherent things that aren't aligning with safe system principles when we're driving these at 100, 110 kilometers per hour. We've got trees and the like on the side of the roads, and we're really fully reliant on the human not making any mistakes, not being distracted, not falling asleep, and the like. And we just can't, you know, put that into our safe system mix to get high alignment with safe system principles. As I say, I think we do lots and lots to reduce the likelihood of crashes. The severity of crashes often comes with big cost if you want to keep those speeds up. So we might have to look to start to bring speeds down, maybe through mobile speed enforcement, point-to-point mobile speed enforcement, and those sorts of things to bring things in check. But it's going to be a real challenge. There's also like an argument, if we can divert people to the higher standard routes, so maybe these can come down in speed with trying to encourage people onto the higher standard routes. The whole politics of how this plays out is very complex, and I'm not going to get into it because we'd just be here forever. But when you do have the slightly higher, order road, and it's got that higher movement function and higher demand and more of a freight route and the like, this one doesn't look like it, but when you're taking a photo in the middle of the road, you don't want anything around there, of course. So this is where we're starting to now provide those facilities of the central barrier system, outer barrier systems, and providing essentially that full containment, trying to bring the scope up of those roads. And then when you get to the intersections, a great place for roundabouts. And those can work nicely in combination. A central barrier system and a roundabout is just like wonderful safe system alignment, because you have access points that can be made left in, left out, or with acceleration lanes, and then people can U-turn around the roundabouts. So yes, you got to think about spacing of these and how you do it, but in theory, that's sort of your ultimate in safe system alignment. For those intersections, if you can't do that, looking to manage speeds, angles, and those sorts of things that we've been talking about quite a bit throughout the sessions. Yep, wide centre lines in these areas are a good one in terms of reducing the likelihood of crashes. The severity gets reduced. The wide centre lines in these areas are nice. I don't think we need the full, 3.5 metre lanes. I think you can eat a bit of that out up if you want to have a bit of a narrower lane. Some people aren't as big a fan of that, but I'd prefer width of separation over width of lane any day. And put some black audio tactile in there maybe if you want. I'll jump through a few more quite quickly now, but when you do get into your outer suburban arterials, your major traffic routes for cars and the like, we should be starting to treat them accordingly. And we don't want cycle lanes on high speed roads. And this one's 70 kilometers an hour. It just doesn't align with safe system principles. Separated facility for cyclists and pedestrians, their own area. Lane width depends on the nature of the vehicles on the road. I think that's right. And speed environment, yep, that is right. And there's some good guidance out there. That's a longer discussion. I mean, I generally agree with that. I think some of our lane widths are a bit more generous than they need to be in some circumstances. But yeah, fundamentally, multiple road users can't be mixing with 70 kilometre per hour traffic like this. And if you say, well, they're not mixing, they've got their own lane. No, we don't know people are going to drift out of that lane, going to turn in across like this one. And we've got all those sorts of challenges. Yes, of course, this vehicle is going to turn in, and if we've got a separated facility, but you can raise that separated facility and make it very clear. Of course, in these areas, our intersections are going to need work to make sure that the speeds are within tolerable levels. But these are the kind of environments where stopping pedestrians, having free crossing access and the like is more generally accepted. You got to think about things like bus stops. How at one point when they either go to work or come back from work, they're going to have to cross the road, aren't they? And so this is where things like underpasses, overpasses become more palatable because it's a traffic route, and that's what it really is. And just finish off here. Motorways are actually really well aligned with safe system principles for a number of reasons, and you come out with some pretty good scores usually. I mean, their volume of vehicles, the exposure of passenger vehicles is high across the board, But the likelihood tends to come down significantly due to the standard of the infrastructure, the alignment, the sealed shoulders, the lighting, and all of that. The severity is down for passenger vehicles as well due to barrier systems. Now, often they use a rigid barrier system, so you might not get as much reduction, but it's pretty good in terms of redirecting and the like. Where these roads tend to not perform as well is at a period of time as they break down in traffic flow. So when they're actually free flowing, the likelihood is really low. When they're absolutely stuffed, so bumper to bumper, the severity is very low because the speed's not there. The likelihood is a bit higher in those circumstances. As the freeway breaks down in traffic flow is where we see the problems, because the speed is still high and the likelihood of crashes is going up. So this one's all like a traffic operations management perspective. Managed motorways are really a wonderful way to reduce the likelihood and the severity of crashes in terms of gantry systems with speed advisories and lane advisories, ramp metering, so traffic lights on the ramps and letting people filter in. You can basically hold the hand of the freeway as it breaks down using some good computer algorithms and software and management systems and the like. And then we can see some great outcomes there in terms of safe system alignment by doing that. Of course, trying to remove any vulnerable road users from these areas, very important from, trying to reduce exposure. And again, your management of motorways when there is a vehicle that's pulled over and maybe there's a pedestrian that's wandered out there or somehow got onto the road, to be able to slow your vehicles down, reducing the likelihood and severity of crashes. And finally, our major rural highways, and these ones are very much, I think, industry's getting quite good at it now, but continuous barrier systems and grade separated interchanges. Fairly easy. I mean, wide clear zones are not providing us as good alignment with safe system principles as continuous barrier systems at about a 4 to 6 meter offset from edge line. So that's flexible barrier system as you go here on these types of roads, grade separating interchanges, as I'm standing on one at the moment, or when taking that photo. And any intersection you do have that is at grade in the interim, it's about either providing good acceleration lanes so vehicles get up to speed so that the delta V is low if they're to crash, and then you'd have to provide space for them to merge, turn around, have a U-turn facility with another acceleration lane back. And that way you actually, with an at-grade facility, still providing high alignment with safe system principles. And if you absolutely must have those cross movements, then you need to do everything you can to reduce the likelihood of crashes, and also ideally provide sort of things like side road activated speed limits, or REORs as they're sometimes called, or SRASs or STARs, or so many acronyms. But basically, the main road vehicle will get a regulatory speed limit reduction as a vehicle is approaching on the side road. You just put your loops and radars to trigger that. So I sort of rushed through a few there, just giving you that general insight into a whole lot of different things. But pretty much at the end of the session here, I will see if anybody's got any final questions, but I'll give you a few logistical things first. You have one more quiz to do, final quiz questions for this session. You have to finish your safe system assessment, submit that, upload it through Moodle. It'll be marked, within a sort of week or so of you uploading it. You'll get a mark back if you get above your 80% mark and you've submitted and completed your other assignment and all your quizzes. You will get, it'll say, right, all you have to do is fill out a feedback survey, a couple of quick questions on how you found the course and the like. and then it will release an electronic version of the certificate of completion and a report card, which has your scores and marks and the like. So you get a certificate. The question there came in, so I'm just going to have to get into Moodle. When's the assignment due? I think you've still got another week at least on that. I'll just bring that up now. You got at least another week, 24th. There you go, Kurt. Thank you for answering that. So you'll get that electronic, you'll be able to get your electronic certificate. And then once you've passed, you'll get another week or so later, you'll get a little pack in the mail with a physical copy of a certificate and any prizes you've won along the way, of course. So you've got a little bit more to do. I'm available to help out if you've got any questions along the way. I'll just share my screen, pop Moodle up. So you can see that. So yeah, you'll be in there completing this. Here we go. You've got module 6 quiz. So you'll need to complete that. You complete the feedback form, and then hey presto, your certificate will pop up, and you'll be able to download it there and complete your safe system assessment. Of course, if you haven't yet downloaded your design, do that. You've got the template there. You've got the graph generator, which I think I sent out to everybody at one point, but now it's been uploaded there. Just an easy little tool to save you a little bit of time there to generate your safe system assessment numbers, for example. So it'll automatically generate this once I put some scores in. And you can, there we go, it's starting to populate. So you can put scores in, and then you can just copy that or snip it and paste it into your, and you know, into your safe system. Just trying to save you a little bit of time there. You can do your own if you want, and you've got your template. And yeah, that's it. You'll be done the course. So I'll just check if any final questions, and then I'll wrap it up. Oh yeah, I just checked that. It should say when it is due. I'll double check Kurt's answer. I think he's right. 24th. Well done, Kurt. You can have a prize for your knowledge of the assignment due date. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I want to genuinely thank you for your time here. I'm just going to stop sharing there. It's amazingly busy time for all of us out there, and for you to take some time out of your busy schedule to understand this process and sort of invigorate your excitement about safe system and preventing death and serious injury on the roads it's really important. I just think it's so important for us to never lose sight of the fact that our decision making around infrastructure on the road network has genuine health implications to our community, and this is a great tool for us to continue to inject that. I want you to be passionate advocates for the safe system assessments, and just road safety in general. And let's keep pushing. We need just armies of people pushing and questioning and saying we can do better. We're not going to trade off human life, and we can do better than this. And go out there and do safe system assessments. Be an advocate for it. You're now some of Australia's most trained up safe system assessors, because it's still fairly early. There's only a small number of our industry. So use that. Get out there, and I will support you. I will send you copies of safe system assessments, gives you advice as you go. Let's get out there. Let's just do safe system assessments on everything. Get everybody and all projects up there with highest alignment safe system principles. So thank you very much. You've been a wonderful group. I love the interaction, and have a wonderful weekend. Get that assignment done, knock it off, get your certificate, proudly, put it up on LinkedIn or something. Tell people you can help them with safe system assessments, and let's get out there and save some lives. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.